Hey soapy folks, this is Kevin with Divinely Designed, and I'm here doing a soap video. Actually, we're doing a shaving soap experiment. I got some mango butter and some kokum butter in today, both of which are very high in stearic acid. And so we're going to make an experiment for a shaving soap. Okay. So let's go over the plan and the recipe. So in my bowl right here, I have 113 grams of castor oil, 113 grams of kokum butter, 113 grams of mango butter, 113 grams of beef tallow, 28 grams of neem oil, 28 grams of babassu oil, and 28 grams of avocado oil. Now, from what I've been reading, and if you watch some of my other videos on shaving soap experiments, part of finding that perfect shaving soap is, one, going for that perfect ratio of sodium hydroxide to potassium hydroxide. So in my water here, I do have lye, but it is a mixture of both sodium and potassium. So I have 216 grams of water, and then I have some sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide. If you're familiar with Soap Calc, because some of you have asked about this, this is the printout from Soap Calc, okay? And you'll notice some of my calculations down here I'll go over in a second. But I entered my recipe in Soap Calc, and then I ran it for sodium hydroxide, and you can see that right up there, right? Which will give you the amount of sodium hydroxide that you would need for this recipe. In this case, it's 74.277 grams of sodium hydroxide for this recipe. Then run the same exact recipe through Soap Calc again, except this time run it for potassium hydroxide. Now you can see here that for potassium hydroxide it would call for 104.173 grams of potassium hydroxide. Okay, so now we know the total amounts if we were just going to use either one of them at 100%. But I want to have a mixture of the two. So my total water is still the same, 215 or around 216 grams of water. But then what I do is I take the amount of sodium hydroxide that was called for, 74.27, and I multiply it by 0.4 because I'm going to use 40% sodium hydroxide to 60% potassium hydroxide. So I took my potassium hydroxide amount, 104.17, multiplied that by 0.6. So that gives me the two individual amounts. So in my water here then, I have 30 grams of sodium hydroxide and 63 grams of potassium hydroxide. I rounded up to the nearest gram. Okay. Now, so that's one thing, is the ratio of potassium to sodium hydroxide to potassium hydroxide. So in this case, I am doing a 40% sodium hydroxide to 60% potassium hydroxide mixture. That seems to be in a pretty sweet spot. I've also seen, 65-35 seems to be good, but somewhere around that ratio, you could probably go 70-30. It seems to be a good ratio of mixtures. And the reason that they do that sort of in shaving soaps is the potassium hydroxide actually will saponify different elements within your oils than the sodium hydroxide would. That helps to make a more stable lather that lasts for a long time. Now, the other thing sort of in discussion about when making a shaving soap is the amount of stearic acid. And, if you go on some of the discussion boards, there's a lot of call out there for doing a really high percentage of stearic acid, 50–60%, somewhere around there. Now, in my other video, I did some shaving experiments, and I think, when I did it, even the 20% stearic acid seemed to do fine as well. So, I do have stearic acid for this recipe, but it's in this little jar over here, and it is 28 grams of stearic acid. Now, that's only 5% of this entire recipe, so this is a 5% stearic acid recipe. However, I chose the elements within here, the kokum butter, the mango butter, and the beef tallow, because they are very high in stearic. So, I am hoping that by choosing those ingredients, I can actually go lower on the total amount of stearic acid that's added. Now, why do I care about that? Why don't I just add 20 or 30% of stearic acid? Well, I'm trying to do this in a cold process method, and stearic acid has a really high melting point. So if you want this to melt in your oils, you have to be above like 120 degrees. That's really hot to soap cold process, and you will then just immediately firm up. So what I'm going to try to do with this experiment is I'm going to add my lye to my oils and blend them up. And then I'm going to take my stearic acid and pour it in separately as I'm blending the rest of the mixture. Now, will this work? I have no idea. I mean, could I end up with stearic acid streaks inside of a soap? Possibly. Could it, volcano at some point? Maybe. Will the stearic acid that's already in the mango, kokum, and tallow just trace really quickly anyway when I add this? No idea. So we're going to try all those things out. Now, if possible, I do have some fragrance to add here as well. No colors for this. And this, I'm not even going to go over what this is. It's just, I have a whole bunch of samples, little bottles I was trying to get rid of, so it's a whole mixture of just random fragrances. And then I'm going to put it in a 2-inch PVC mold again, because this is a test. I have the 2-inch PVC mold. I have taken a double layer of saran wrap or press and seal, put that on the end, then added a quick cap on top of that, and then put a layer of Scotch tape nice and tightly around to hold that. I've also lined it with this clear plastic liner to help get the soap out easier. I've read people say that they don't need liners. I don't have very good luck with it, so I don't trust it. Okay, so temperature-wise, let's go over temperatures. Okay, so oils, 81, and lye water, 71. Okay, so that's good. Nice and good temperatures. And then let's look at stearic acid, which I heated up in the microwave separately. $138. Okay, so pretty high, but it's already starting to solidify, so let's get going. All right, so lye water into my oils. Let's give it a mix. Okay, that's behaving nicely. It is a little thick already. I mean, it's starting to trace, but much better than previously. All right, so here goes the stearic. I'm going to blend, I'm going to pour in as I sort of blend. Okay, that didn't go too badly. Now it's sort of firmed up, the stearic acid. So I probably should have added a little bit more because I definitely have some that sort of stuck to the glass. Okay, but it's in there. It's still kind of in liquid form. And I'm going to add fragrance. All right. Well, this is working very nicely. I mean, assuming my shaving bar is going to turn out nice, but we'll see how it goes. I didn't really think about those fragrances and discoloring the soap because I'm not really doing any colors or anything. And again, this is mostly for me and probably my dad. But, okay, that is bueno. So into my mold I go. Doesn't smell bad. Okay, that looks good. I have some extra. So I'm going to get some little cups out here. Do a couple. It is definitely starting to firm up quickly though. Sorry, this is maybe off the screen. Yeah, it's starting to thicken up quite a bit, but so it's definitely not something you have a lot of time to work with, but it's a lot more time than the last time I did the shaving soap with a higher percent of stearic acid, which you have almost no time to work with. All right, so there we go. Shaving soap with 5% stearic acid, but oils high in stearic acid themselves, and a stearic acid poured into the mixture as you're blending. So we'll see how that goes. Comments, question? Oh, well, stick around. After the break should be the unmolding, and so tomorrow I'll try it, and I probably won't be able to wait. We'll just try one right away to see how it lathers and what happens to it. So, all right, that should happen right after the break. Stick around. All right, hey everyone. So this is a follow-up to the shaving soap that I poured. Now, it's still, I expect this is going to be soft. I just took the cupcake ones out, which I don't know if you can see over here. And the bottoms are still pretty soft. So I could probably leave this sit in here for a little while, but and that's kind of why I like using this liner, because you saw it just slid out so easy. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So let's give this a cut. I really need to clean this cutter off. And it's a little long for my cutter. So let me just cut this. All right, here we go. So yeah, it's still pretty soft, but it cut very nicely. Gave me a nice puck. Now, you know, since we poured that stearic acid in there sort of in the middle, I was interested to see what would happen. And I don't really it doesn't really seem like there are any stearic acid spots in here. I mean, I see some, it's probably very hard to see. There are some very tiny spots. But nothing, you know, that isn't sort of normal. So, okay, so let's get these on a paper towel here real quick. And these came out actually very nice pucks. So, and let me see if I can cut this one here. Okay. All right, so let's try I'm going to take this just little piece here, and I have oh goodness, I'm wrecking the joint. Okay. All right, so I have a little wooden shaving bowl. Now this is very soft. I mean, I should let this cure for a while, but I'm just curious. I'm going to put a little water in here, and I have a shaving brush, and so let me wet my brush. Okay, so I just wet my brush and then just sort of shook it out so it's damp, and then I have a little bit of water in the bowl here. Okay. Oops. Add a little bit more water in my brush. So, I mean, that made it, that was fresh out of the mold. Probably needs some time to cure, but it feels very nice. And it's very thick. So I think, this lather's going to be a good shaving lather. I'm going to let this, just because I like to test and see how long it's stable, I'm going to let this sit out for 20 minutes or so, just to see that it holds up. But, I mean, it looks like it did well. Now, if these soaps stay, they're soft right now, but they're not terrible. So maybe going to 10% stearic acid might help to give a harder puck. But I'm going to let them cure, you know, for 4 weeks or so. And although I will honestly, in a couple of days, I will probably start using one myself. Just because by then, even though it's soft and isn't fully dry, it should all the saponification will be done, and it should be safe to use. So, all right, so I'm gonna let that lather sit just to make sure it's stable. I'm gonna let these dry for a while. Hopefully they'll firm up a little bit, but I'm not really unhappy with how they are right now. They're just a little bit soft, and I think when they dry out here on the in the air for a while, they'll be even better. So, okay, so I'm pretty excited about this. You know, I think the mango butter, the kokum butter, the beef tallow, I think that's going to make an excellent combination for the actual shaving soap. So when you use it on your face, it feels really nice. I'm happy with the firmness. I'm happy that the stearic acid, pouring it in separately, allowed me to keep my other temperatures really cool so I could continue to do it as a cold process. And so overall, I'm really happy. I'm going to let them cure and just see how they do. So, okay, thanks for watching. Questions, comments, leave them below, especially from you, like, shaving experts out there, you know, who use this a lot. I am not super experienced with using shaving soaps in general. I've always used a commercial one. But for you shaving folks out there who are experts and used them for years and sort of are aware of the qualities, and let me know what you think, and ask me questions. I'd love to try and figure stuff out for a better shaving soap if I can. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching.